When I got into the industry, I realized that you can lead like a horse to water, but you can't force a horse to drink. Yeah, people don't like having that conversation. People don't like being told that they don't do enough exercise. People don't like being told that they don't eat well. People don't like being told that they spend too much time on TikTok. And I have been absolutely blown away with... Hey, I'm Zeb.
And I'm Maddie.
And welcome to the We Don't Know Yet podcast. Whilst both Maddie and I are healthcare practitioners, we understand that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare. Should you require any medical attention, please seek out your local healthcare practitioner. It's a Wednesday.
I know, God. This week is going fast.
It is.
It's a public holiday.
It's disappeared. Well, it was a public holiday for everyone else, but not for me.
It wasn't?
Yeah, I usually work Tuesday to Saturday. So
Oh, true.
big
And
sad.
I didn't know that Melbourne didn't have the public holiday either. Not
Yeah.
that you're from Melbourne anymore. Well, you are, but not that you live there.
Well, it's like when Melbourne has the AFL Grand Final day.
Yeah, fair. So what's that, like a week or two before?
It's a week before, on the Friday.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, which we don't have here. Sad.
It was nice though. How was your, well, you get a day off every Monday,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
how was your weekend?
It was good. It was still good. We caught up with you
We did. We
Yeah.
went to the beach.
on Monday and on Sunday actually, because we had a catch up with the Drip Digital team.
We did have a catch up with the
Which
Drip
is
Digital
cool.
and I was dying of period pain.
Woo!
So good.
I spent so long at the beach on the weekend though.
Yeah, it was a very wholesome summer vibey weekend.
Yeah, 30 degrees.
So
I think,
good.
across one day,
Yeah,
20 something the other day.
so good.
It was honestly gorgeous.
Yeah, but then you hop in the water and it's still Arctic temperatures.
Yeah, but I think that's what you need when you go to the beach. You get in the water and it's like, yeah,
It is nice. It's refreshing. And then you heat up again and do it all over again.
yeah, 100%.
Are you a linger in the waterer or are you a just like in and out type of operator?
I'm an in and out type of operator, but so for update for everyone, I've been seeing Elizabeth from the Dow.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the fact that I need to do some alternate exercise, and exercise is just go, go, go.
Right.
So she recommended trying to do some swimming. And in particular, she recommended trying to build up to swimming out to
Shark Island.
Shark Island,
Oh gosh.
which I'm horrified about, mind you.
The name doesn't do it any
No,
favors,
it doesn't
does
do it any justice. But I did on the weekend buy a pair of goggles.
Amazing.
I took them down to Cronulla.
Yeah.
And I wore them in the water, and I look like we watched like a reel on the weekend. Some of the guys we were with showed me this reel of this kid at like a holiday park with his goggles, like swimming up to everyone. And that's exactly what I felt like.
You were just swimming around
I
people's
know.
legs.
It's like, hey guys, like
The
you know the
listener-
reel. Yeah, you know the reel that I'm visualizing.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, but that's what I felt like on the weekend. But yes, so I'm currently, to answer your question, a dip in, get out kind of guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
You're building up to swimming
I
out.
might try and build up to
What
be
is
a
it, like
bit
a
more of a
K?
swimmer. I actually don't know how far it is. That
Sure
horrifies me.
It doesn't look that far, but I think once you actually start swimming, it's got some length to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was dead clear in the water. Like when I put my head underwater with the goggles on, you can almost see straight down the bottom.
Yeah. I
It's
feel
crazy.
like I don't know how to say this without sounding like a dickhead, but I feel like sharks are quite chill. Like when we're away, we were snorkeling and saw so many sharks and like they don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
And one of my friends was saying that humans, I don't know if this is factual, so don't hate me if it's not true, but humans have copper-rich blood. So sharks don't like copper-rich blood. So when they bite us, they're like, ugh, it tastes disgusting. Like, I don't want that.
So without sounding extremely morbid and insensitive, does that mean when they take someone's leg off and
It just means-
swallow it, it means that that's a yummy person?
Well, most of the time they don't swallow it. Most of the time, like, it just washes up later, doesn't it? Okay. I'm
I
not a
don't
shark
know.
fan.
We need to do some research
Yeah.
on that.
But my encounters with sharks is that they've been really chill and that has
Okay.
totally changed my perception of them my whole entire life, an adult life.
Yeah.
And then like my friends like snorkel with sharks around here and they say the same. So it's not
Okay.
just like chill Colombian sharks.
Sharks, chill Colombian sharks. Sharks are friend.
Yeah, sharks are friends. Fish are friends.
Fish
not
are friends,
food.
not food.
Humans are friends, not food. Any sharks watching?
Yeah, I low-key was a little bit scared of sharks in Bali though, because we went snorkeling in Bali,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, wow, okay, this is very like open water.
And it's like eerily quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't in Bali. There was like,
Ah.
actually, you know, now that I think about it, I wasn't really scared of sharks because there was like 80 boats like all around each other. All the little tour companies take all the people out in
true.
Bali, and You dive down and eat petrol in the water while you're swimming. And
You could have been
so
underneath
good.
one of those glass boats. Like,
Yeah.
just watch a wild zeb swim by.
God. You're excited though.
I'm excited, and I'm excited to, I guess, be able for us to just sit down one-on-one. It's been a while. Like,
Yeah.
obviously we did the 25 ep recap, but that was some time ago.
Yeah, a little bit of a time ago. I don't know. There's something in just interviewing people.
Yeah.
that I kind of really enjoy. I mean, half the reason we started some of this stuff as well was to learn something new. A, from our own research perspective.
Yeah.
But like we said in the 25 recap, episode 25 of the recap, it can be very time consuming research wise.
Yeah.
But like meeting some of the people we've actually met in the last little bit.
It's been cool expanding our networks.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
I've actually loved it.
And just meeting some legends who are so knowledgeable.
Yeah. And on top of that as well, like we've fired up our little PDME community off the back of this.
We have.
And it's been awesome to see so many of the guests that we've actually had in here then like break it down for general population on the podcast.
Yeah.
But then be so happy to donate some of their time or contribute some of their time to come across to the professional platform and sit down and nut out some stuff with a group of allied health professionals that we're like building and putting together. So
catering to different populations or different groups, I should say.
Yeah, which is really cool. And I mean, like half of this for us is learning, but it's so nice to then be able to try and share that with a broader community of allied health professionals so that we can all build ourselves up.
Absolutely. And speaking of learning, I'll explain a little bit about to our listeners what today is. It's not just us chatting shit about sharks in Bali and Colombia. It is basically Zeb and I have chosen a topic each to talk about, a bit of a passion point for us, for each of us, if you will. And then the other person has to ask said person 3 questions based on the topic. So Zeb, what's your topic today?
Yeah, well, my topic doesn't actually relate too much to osteo, which is, well, it does, but it doesn't.
I feel like it's still a passion point for you though.
It's a huge passion point. And I think it's because when I got into the industry, I realized that you can lead like a horse to water, but you can't force a horse to drink. And it's the same with people. You can give people a lot of information. A lot of the time, if you give them too much information, they're overstimulated.
Yep.
But you can't actually force them to implement anything on the outside. You have to be really reliant and build a bit of rapport and try and coach them through making those changes themselves.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you only get to spend, like in my scenario, 30 to 40 minutes with a patient.
Yep.
And then they leave the treatment room and it's kind of like
Good
there's
luck.
there's a big bad world out there. And it's like everything that we learned in 40 minutes, you have to then go and apply to real life.
Yeah. And that as well, I feel like, or I don't know if it's so much for your sort of profession, but definitely for mine, like everything's Googleable.
Yeah.
But obviously someone wants to work with you for that behavior change element.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm not a behavioral change specialist or psychologist or I don't have a background in behavior change, but in my honest opinion, it is like one of the most fundamental skills that you need as a healthcare practitioner is being able to sit there with someone and navigate what their life looks like around their pain or around their issue that they're coming to see you with, and then trying to help them navigate that through their day-to-day life. But yeah, so the topic that I picked was like behavior change and its role in like
Healthcare.
the healthcare system.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. And why is that such a passion point for you?
I think because like ever since doing this and ever since I suppose getting to an age where like you have little things starting to pop up, you really do find out that like everyone has so many different ways of going about managing particular problems. And like for me, since chatting with a lot of these people on the podcast and learning a little bit about their different industries and different spaces, I've kind of really wanted to go out of my way to try and see different people and prevent any health related issues for myself personally.
Yeah.
I always listen. I watched that Do You Want to Live Forever?
Yeah, you were
show
telling
that I
me
was
about
telling you
this
about.
off air. I've not heard of it.
Yeah, and so it was a show that was designed to get like 5 Aussie couples in.
Yep.
And it was essentially like a show where they look at every aspect of their life. So like their social life, their nutrition, their physical exercise, their sleep, like a lot of those different aspects.
Yep.
And they essentially try and like change their behaviors over like a X amount of week period.
Right.
And they in little pockets through the episodes, they also had little snippets of people who are trying to prolong their life. So the people that are really, really, really overly health conscious or like really health aware, that are trying to do everything under the sun to prevent
all of the things.
Yeah, they're like spending a lot of money on a lot of different procedures to try and I can't remember what that guy's name is, but you know the guy in the US who, I have to get the name.
Huberman?
No. He's like a I'm gonna have to get the name and bring it up in a future podcast. But they're doing everything they can essentially to prolong their life, and it kind of made me sit there and go, oh, like I don't even know if I'm doing everything to prioritize my health. Yeah. So like since being on this journey, I've kind of wanted to prioritize my health in a way that's a little bit different to the ways that I used to think, which was just when I got a problem,
go treat it.
Go treat it and get it sorted and then move on.
Yeah. Which is how most of us think.
Yeah. And I think that's why the behavioral change side of things is really important. Like when you see someone for like an initial consultation, it's about helping them get through that initial consultation, that journey that they're on in terms of whether it's they're presenting with a pain or something along those lines. But then it's also about setting them up outside of the clinic in terms of trying to instill on them like knowledge about themselves and their body, and then like highlighting to them different things or aspects of their life that they can chop and change around a little bit to try and prevent anything in the future that could potentially pose a threat to them. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like I found it really interesting, and I think this is just my own biased beliefs and like looking through rose-colored glasses essentially is like I've always been quite physically active. I've always like eaten well, like a lot of that kind of stuff. And I have been absolutely blown away with just how different all my patients' lifestyles are outside of their pain presentation. Yeah. So that's why I think like it's such an important topic to unpack. And it's one as well that, you know, if you get stuck in the healthcare industry of just unpacking like the pain and the problem that they present with on the day, you know, like you miss such a big part of then their future lives as people. But it's also a very taxing topic to talk about with people because it's not always a topic that people want to actually unpack.
Yeah, and sometimes you end up being people's therapist.
Yeah.
Not actual therapist, but like...
Yeah, like they're bouncing all these like really complex and heavy topics off you. Yeah. And that's still something that I haven't like mastered or I'm still navigating myself is how do you actually manage people in those scenarios? Because it's I think it's just like you'd see it as well. It's so difficult. You absorb that load and then how do you actually go about processing it? Yeah. But yeah, I think there's definitely a space for all healthcare practitioners to be a bit of a health coach in the healthcare industry instead of just being someone who... Here's your problem, let's fix it, off your pop. Yeah. Bit of a tangent before I dive into my questions. One thing that I found really helpful, I don't know where I picked it up. I picked it off... I'm not even going to try and remember. It's going to take me a while and people will get bored. Yep. But one thing I do sometimes, not all the time, but if I've had a particularly emotionally taxing day, is like I'll sit on the lounge or in the chair in my office and imagine I've got like this big empty box and I'm putting all of the shit in the box and then I put like a lid on it and I walk over to my metaphorical like bookshelf and just like pop work on the shelf. That's so Which good. Sounds so weird. And look, it's not an everyday thing, but I have found on days where I'm like, man, like I'm really feeling it. It's quite good. Yeah, I definitely feel like I need to do something like that. Yeah, it's good. I'm going to dive into my question. So my first question is, why do you think it is so difficult for people to make sustainable behavior change despite presenting very motivated? It's a big one. It is a big loaded question. Okay, so I think that in today's day and age, there are so many different factors to consider with people. So like we think about behavior change from like a psychological perspective, but then there's so many external like factors that influence someone's psychological space as well. Yep. So, you know, in today's day and age, we have like cost of living, stress, work, all these social activities that go on outside of it as well. Yeah. Like our actual like physical capacity to like fit things in a day and like fatigue and, you know, I think when people sit down and they look to make a change in their life, even if they've got the motivation, they might not actually know how to make that change or how to go about that change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as in like, so just so I can make sure I heard it correctly, like they're coming to you very motivated to get on top of whatever's going on for them.
Yeah.
But then, as you said, they leave the treatment room, they go home, and then their, bills are really high that month, and they might not be able to afford the certain things that you've recommended, or just like things that improve health overall.
Yeah.
Or they've got like back-to-back parties and social outings on the weekend that are impairing their time to like, rest and do physical activity. And is that what you meant?
Absolutely. And like, I think of it in relation to, I always talk about with patients when they're going through like an inflammatory episode or like an acute episode. It's like, right, like, okay, so alcohol is not going to be good in this scenario.
Yeah.
Right? And people are so motivated to get better. They've come in to see me. They're like in excruciating pain. And the moment they hear the words alcohol is not going to be good for you this weekend, and they've got something social on the weekend, there's this immediate conflict within them. They're kind of sitting there going like, like, I know I'm in a lot of pain, but like socially, like, this is a big part of my social interaction. Like when I go to parties or when I go to events or things like that, like I go and I have a few drinks and I enjoy my time with my friends, and like this is a scenario now where like I'm in pain, but I don't also want to give up the thing that,
is going to cause me more pain, but it's also a big social thing for them.
Yeah.
I think that's such a broader systemic issue too, like the whole how alcohol is so heavily ingrained into the like Australian culture.
Yeah, it's massive. And I think, at the end of the day, the moral of the story is like we have a lot of distractions and a lot of things that really impact our lives these days. I think more stimulus than we've ever had in our lives before.
Yeah.
So more things on the day-to-day that have the ability to grab and steal our attention for a long period of time, or things that are really engaging and addictive for us in terms of like our actual habits and behaviors as well.
Yeah.
So I think we find it really difficult, all being well, like to have the motivation to make a change or to do something. But until you have either like a traumatic like incident or something that really spurs you into action.
Yeah.
Or like you really hit a stage where you're just like, I need to make a change. It's hard to really pull yourself out of like that hole of the never-ending cycle. Pressing
sort of problem.
Yeah. And like the other example that I'll use is like we talk about physical activity with our patients a lot. So it's like, like obviously there's you recommended guidelines for physical activity per week, right? And like a lot of people do that. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people as well will misunderstand what those physical activity recommendations are as well, and from perspective of, what strenuous activity looks like for one person or what mild or moderate intensity looks like for another.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily prioritize something like that either. Like not everyone really enjoys going to the gym and smashing themselves for an hour. Like it's not, for some people, it's not their thing and they don't enjoy it. Yeah. So, when something presents like TikTok and, the opportunity to sit there and scroll for an hour, like presents itself.
Yeah.
If that's something you enjoy doing, because like what we know now through like all the research that's coming out about, social media and like that addictive kind of presence it has, we're going to sit there and scroll for an hour instead of, doing an hour's worth of physical activity.
Particularly if there's no pressing sort of pain as well.
Yeah. And like it's that old tale of like, you don't realize until it's too late, right? Like it's like all of a sudden you get to a stage where you go, I wish I had have done something more. And I'm reading I'm rereading Stephen Bartlett's book at the minute.
Oh, The Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, because I read through it and I found it really fascinating. But I felt like I didn't absorb all of it. So I'm reading it again, and I've got a little notepad that I take out like on my Sunday mornings. I sit down and read.
I did see that in your story. I was like, that's such a good idea.
It's cool practice like I put in at the minute. But he in one of the chapters, he talks about reprioritizing your health. And what that looks like to everyone is so different. But like I think there needs to be this whole systemic issue addressed of like there is like a level of distraction that we have in our lives.
Yeah.
But the education and information people have access to needs to be more from the perspective of things that they might be able to do to really prioritize their health on a week-to-week basis to prevent such things later on down the line.
Yeah.
But like we said, and you know, we've harped on it a few times now with Chapo, and like I think that healthcare is like a really slow-moving beast. Like those messages are going to take a long time to really get across to the broader population and community.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like people are just.
I feel like you answered it really well.
People are motivated, but they're not motivated enough to take action. So
yeah,
I don't know. There's a level of motivation that might be there, but yeah, it's really interesting that there's like the next layer on from motivation, which is like the action layer, and that's usually the next step that people don't get to. So
yeah, no, you answered that really well. Okay, I'm going to move on to my next question.
Second question.
Do you think healthcare professionals put too much emphasis on patient compliance rather than addressing the deeper psychological and or environmental factors that might be influencing behavior change? That's very loaded.
That is very loaded.
Do you
Yeah.
want to read that again?
Yes.
Yep. Do you think healthcare professionals put too much emphasis on patient compliance, as in like, here's what I've told you to do, now do it, rather than looking at like the underlying psychological or environmental factors?
Yeah. Huge. It's hard, right? So like we just touched on, people.
I feel like you kind of answered it.
Well, not really, but I would say like I don't think it's bad that healthcare practitioners put an accountability factor in place. Like they put kind of a compliance factor there. And the reason that compliance is there is because I think we're trying to generate some sort of independence in our population and our patient demographic. Because the last thing you want to be is one of those practitioners that builds reliance instead of independence. So I think there has to be an element of independence there when you're trying to coach someone through like a journey or a pain journey. But at the same time, it is hard to, and I do think there's an element of reliance that people need in the early stages of their treatment.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're not going to get to the stage where they can sustainably build independence, if that makes sense. So I think patient compliance, like outside of the clinic, is really important, but I think it's something that you have to develop and build once the rapport side of things is down pat first.
Yeah, yep.
And then you can start to build that compliance away from the clinic. The part on, external factors and addressing them a lot more in detail, I think it's a really difficult conversation to have with patients because like,
it's icky.
Yeah, people don't like having that conversation. People don't like being told that they don't do enough exercise. People don't like being told that they like don't eat well.
Yeah.
People don't like being told that they spend too much time on TikTok. Like it's a.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean? Like it's a real finicky conversation to have with someone because in a scenario where, and I think you got to pick and choose your patients as well where you have these behavioral conversations with, because some people will take that on board and they'll run with it and they'll be like, that's great feedback. Like that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah, I needed that gentle kick up the bum.
Yeah, but some people are in a position where you can't be that firm or direct with them at the start and you got to layer it in because if you hit them with that straight off the bat,
they're not coming back.
They ain't coming back.
Yep.
And it's not about getting them coming back. It's about like you don't want to build a negative feedback loop where they don't trust the system because people just keep telling them that they've got to do this or they've got to do that, and
prevents them from future help seeking.
Yeah, like they don't want to actually go out and seek help if they had a bad experience. What to do. Yeah, no, I completely. I don't know. Do you find that like with you with like?
See, I was afraid you were going to ask this. I feel like I've definitely, there are parts what you said I absolutely resonate with, but I think I obviously have the biased lens of working in mental health, in particular EDs, where people with eating disorders, it's not uncommon for them to have a plethora of different other mental health conditions. Yeah. And also just neurodivergence or neurodiversity, I should say as well, like people with ADHD or autism. That compliance element, I think, can be can instill a lot of shame in people if you're like, okay, well, why didn't you do the things that I want you to do? rather, I guess I come at most of the time through the lens of like explaining why I'm recommending these things, and just really focusing on like that rapport building and that empowerment. So compliance, I guess, yes, is obviously something that you're wanting to work towards for outcomes, obviously, but I think it's quite slow until we get to that point. I don't know if I explained that correctly.
Yeah, no, you didn't. I think we're saying the same thing from the perspective that like the goal is independence.
Yes, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, like people are their own worst enemies sometimes.
Yeah.
And they can go in ebbs and flows.
Yes.
And sometimes it's nice if the opportunity's there for them to like have someone there to rely on in the early phases.
And they know you've got their best interests at heart.
Yeah. And the hardest thing I think is like we live in an age, right, where like cost of living is extremely high.
Yes.
A healthcare practitioner consultation these days costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like I think about it. Thank God I have private health insurance. Some people aren't as fortunate to have private health insurance.
Yeah.
Like cost of living is so high. So it's really interesting because I have this conversation with some people where like, oh yeah, like health is a luxury, like, but it's also a necessity.
It's a necessity for sure.
Like it's a necessity, but it's also a luxury. Like some people treat it as a luxury, some people treat it as a necessity. But there needs to be this kind of like middle spot where it is a priority and a luxury, but it also isn't. I don't know if I'm explaining that.
No, it is a luxury to have the budget to afford private services.
That's where I'm going.
But then not prioritizing your health, if you have that capacity to do so, could have implications down the line.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a really tricky one because like I think there needs to be that element of independence from that perspective sometimes. So it's like if I'm looking at someone and, you know, we will always give them our honest opinion in terms of like when they need to come back and when they need to. And this probably fits in with like my empathic self, and I probably need to be a lot like stricter at you know, being like to people, this is what I think you should do.
Yeah.
Because you always get a bit concerned about people's hip pocket, but at the end of the day, they're coming to see you because you're a professional in the field.
Yes.
But I'll always try to give people little snippets of independence along the way where it's like, can we do this? Can we do that? But now that you say it, like I have noticed if a patient comes in and sees me and I've given them an exercise program and they haven't done any of the exercise program the last 2 weeks since I've seen them last, and their pain's still the same.
Yeah.
The first thing the first thing they'll say is they'll come in and they'll sit down and they go, now I haven't done any of my exercise for the last. That's like the first thing we go to. And you're right. It's almost like they're ashamed of like.
Yeah.
Like, and you as a practitioner sometimes are almost like you don't really want to like ask too directly because you're also like, I don't want to embarrass them.
No.
From the perspective of them, like me knowing they haven't logged it on their Physi track. But I need to talk to them about it to hold them a little bit accountable to some capacity
or
too.
even just stress the importance of it. Not being like, oh, it's fine. Then they'll be like, oh, it's not important that I do this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's a really tricky one. And I think it's very individualized in the grand scheme of things, like everything in healthcare is.
Yeah.
But
no, I think you answered it. It's good.
Yeah.
I like to hear your perspective on things because obviously completely different industries.
Yeah.
And different, like I feel like practitioner to practitioner, it would be so different.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's like some scenarios where, and again, you know, it's like, it's the values of the person you're managing too, right? Like, like I said, I'm seeing Elizabeth now and I go and see her monthly and like I pay.
I need to book in and see her.
Yeah. Like without saying consult costs on air or anything. Like I pay her a significant amount.
Well, and as an alternate medicine as well. Yeah. But it's a value of yours.
It is a value of mine. And it's one of those things where I go, well, you know, yes, I'm spending a bit of money on it, but
health
it's
is
my
wealth.
health. Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast recently and it was talking about the value. I think it was the same. It was the Stephen Bartlett thing again. Anyway, he's talking about like a table and you can put everything in your life on this table. But if the table didn't exist, you couldn't put anything on the table. So he was talking about prioritizing your health and your health is the table. He's like, you can take things off the table all the time, but if you take the table away, you have nothing to put on.
Screwed.
You can't put anything on the table.
I like that analogy.
So
might steal that. That's good. All right. Third and final question.
Yep.
Some people argue that the healthcare system isn't designed to truly support long-term behaviour change. Do you think our system is fundamentally flawed in how it approaches prevention and lifestyle modification? Huge, very complex, very loaded.
Yeah, well, this comes off the back of that conversation, right?
Yeah,
and
they're all quite like along the same trend.
Yours flow really nicely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we covered this a bit in Chapo's episode as well with the public health sector and
yes,
the need for some more programs in place and funding and what all of that looks like in terms of education and some of that stuff
prevention.
Too. Yeah, I think short answer is yes, like more needs to be done to really set up a foundation for successful behavior change in people. And because I think it's all down to people's health literacy. And then the other side of that is like affordability and cost. So, and like those other values we spoke about before, like the prioritizing and
if it's a value of yours, etc. Yeah.
If it's a value, like that'll be something that you allocate funding to, and like from the perspective of your own personal funds too.
Yeah.
But it's also something that you'll like seek out education on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't get those values, like you don't understand the importance of prioritizing your health unless you have the education. So I think in a way, like it all starts with that, and that is a really big flaw in our system and something that really needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
And like like we said, that takes time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely more needs to be done in terms of
prevention
and education around like lifestyle and behavior change.
Yeah. If I may equip myself with my imaginary tinfoil hat here, I feel like I need to get one and just make one out of foil.
Yeah. Can we bring one in next time?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about running to the kitchen. I can't be bothered. Sorry, guys. Do you think, and this is purely like a vibe-based opinion, it's not factual, so please don't take it with a grain of salt, I should say. Do you think more hasn't been done in the early prevention and like early modification space?
I know where this question's going.
Because of Big Pharma, like how much people make so much money off drugs to cure illnesses or injuries. Like, do you think that plays a role in why more hasn't been done in the early like prevention space?
Man, would I like to just be like, nah, like not a chance. Surely we're all good humans and we don't like making money that bad.
Yeah. And like, again, this is purely vibe, opinion based, not factual. But my tinfoil hat is buzzing.
Yeah, I get a bit, I get conflicted in this space. Because like it's like there's so many new medications and all this stuff coming out now.
High blood pressure, high cholesterol.
Yeah. And we never used to have any of that, like the fancy medications way back when. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really hard to say. I would like to believe no. Like I would like to believe no.
Should we leave it at a question mark?
Yeah, I feel like to be further
TBC.
discussed.
It could be a whole another episode, podcast episode in and of itself.
I feel like it's a very big rabbit hole.
It is.
Because I also think that
to snip it into my mind as you were talking, I was like, ooh.
I know, but you're right. Like you think about, like I see patients come in that have been prescribed. I've seen patients come in and they don't understand why they've been prescribed medications before.
Yeah.
But I would deep down love to believe that no, like that can't be the reason that we haven't seen like a spike in prevention and education. Yeah, but ...
TBC. Amazing. Well, thank you for answering all of my questions.
No worries. I hope that was actually like I've never really unpacked that whole aspect of our job before because it's just you don't like behavior change and managing people and it's not something you really learn at uni or
no, the clinical skills are drilled into you, not the actual how do you make it long lasting.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast.
Be the first to know when the next episode drops by hitting subscribe on wherever you catch your podcasts.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at we don't know yet.pod.
See ya.